we've got Alan Steffen. Nailed it? Got it? Okay. So we've actually wanted to have Alan present for a while at Web Analytics Wednesday. His company, the company where Dialog Tech actually does work with Brian Huber, and Brian's the one who said, look, they're doing some really cool stuff, and there's the technology side of it, because we don't do sales pitches at Web Analytics Wednesday, but just the idea of what kind of machine learning and being able to get speech to text, text mining, the sorts of things that are becoming available to us now that weren't really as feasible or economically possible 5 or 10 years ago. So we've had this kind of on the plan for over a year. And of course, then Brian wasn't available to attend, but that's okay. He's here in spirit. So Alan is the SVP of Analytics Services at Dialog Tech. He's been there since 2015. And he's based in Chicago. Prior to that, he held various analytics-related positions at Verint, at Mattersight, at PwC. Education-wise, he's actually a Dayton native and went to school at Miami. So go Redhawks. Got any other Redhawks here? Go. Okay. OH? Whatever. He actually got his MBA from the Booth School of Business at the University of Chicago. Little pop quiz for Alan. Do you know who your mascot at the University of Chicago is? Phoenix. Phil the Phoenix. I did my research. Phil the Phoenix. So he has at least 3 kids, not because I'm super creepy, but he tweeted like a week ago that he had one of those hellish, I have 3 young kids calendar schedules. And so Henry, William, and Annie all had a mix of soccer and baseball commitments, and his calendar looked awful for a Saturday. But with that, I am going to turn it over to Alan, and here we go.
Thank you, Tim. That's some impressive research, so thank you. Scary. All right. So Brian Huber at Comfort Keepers invited me to speak today because, as Tim mentioned, we're doing some pretty cool stuff. And the fact of the matter is, I was a little bit hesitant because you guys are primarily in digital, and I know that there is digital. My expertise is actually in the voice channel. As Tim mentioned, my background with the companies, the last couple of companies that I've been with for over the last decade, my area of expertise has been in effectively speech analytics, which means I've listened to a boatload of phone calls, which is kind of sad, but I really enjoyed doing it. And so one of the things that we've done recently at Dialog Tech is we rolled out a product, an analytics product, and Brian and the Comfort Keepers team, as I forget my password, they were instrumental in helping us develop it. But I think what's mainly going to be of interest for this audience is some of what we're doing with that type of data, the way that we're looking at it, because I imagine that we all are producing insights of some way, shape, or form to stakeholders, whether they're internal customers or external customers. And one of the things that actually I love about working with voice data is the richness of that data. So I just wanted to share with you my approach, what we have done, because I'll be honest with you, it has myself and a whole bunch of other people on the board and everybody else excited because we're thinking about things in a different way. And really, sort of the theme here is how we can use AI to help a local business compete with larger companies, but really it's how to use data, right? How to use data, analytics, packaging to help companies of all sizes, okay? So you guys are all digital, but the name of the company is Dialog Tech. And this is actually my most recent purchase at my house. I bought a 1978 GTE rotary dial phone. I was so happy with it. It was, spite goes a long way, by the way. My wife refused to get rid of the landline, so I said, oh, you want to go old school? We're going to go old school, baby. We're going to get a rotary phone. My kids had no idea what to do with it. I told them to rotate it, so they did. They dialed and then picked up the handset, and they said, it's not working. I said, okay, well, let me explain to you what it works. Did it again, but the thing is stopping me. It won't let me go all the way through. It's supposed to stop you. I'm trying to rip it out. So, you know, when a lot of people think about phone calls, they think about sort of a bygone age. It's all about mobile, it's all about digital. People aren't making phone calls, right? Well, there's an interesting byproduct. And I know Adam is a new member of the Dialogue Tech family as of 2 weeks ago. We were just talking about it. So some of you may recognize the value of these phone calls, but here are some numbers to let you know about what's happening because of your digital efforts, because of what digital marketing is doing. Frankly, this thing, while it's a great computer, it doubles as a phone, okay? So what we're seeing is an explosion, especially in hyperlocal businesses. You need your dishwasher repaired, you're going to pick up the phone, and you're going to call, right? So there are many industries where a phone call is critical in the purchasing journey. That human connection is very important. So yes, it's all about mobile first, everywhere. But guess what the byproduct is? The byproduct is your customers picking up the phone to talk. Over 40 billion phone calls came from search ads, right? 12 billion phone calls from Facebook ads. 28 billion calls from display. Overall, we're looking at 162 billion phone conversations coming from digital. Tick, 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 tick. It's only going up. It's only going up. And there's a reason why this becomes very important from a digital marketer's perspective, because phone calls convert better than form fills. In many instances, between 10 and 15%, 15 times better. Okay? So all this is to tell you that, yes, this is going to be about phone calls and data, but here's a little bit of the reason why you should somewhat care about phone calls. Okay? Now, at Dialogue Tech, what we have is we were founded 10 years ago, okay? All on the premise of being able to connect a customer with a consumer. I'm giving you that background because I came from a space of speech analytics. Speech analytics was born in the contact center, okay? So you'd set up call recording. It would take you about 6 weeks to 6 months to set up call recording. You'd have to tap phone lines and do a bunch of really ugly IT stuff. And then you'd deploy this piece of software, and then you'd hire an analyst, and the analyst would listen to a boatload of phone calls and start to try to figure out or ask questions of what's important to you, right? What are some of the questions we want to solve? Well, I got tired of that. That's why I joined Dialogue Tech, okay? Because there is so much opportunity in tapping into some of these channels by thinking about the problem differently. Now, the bottom line is, as digital marketers, you're driving phone calls. The question is, what about them? This is supposed to be the black hole. Actually, this is a black hole swallowing a galaxy. As if you didn't have nightmares enough, that is a real thing. Okay? We talk about the black hole of marketing, right? I can track clicks, right? I can track form fills. The phone call is offline. No idea what's happening. But I know that when I invest more in my marketing, phone calls go up, sales go up. That's like the Don Draper, 50% of my marketing is working, I just don't know what 50%. Guys, we have a way to be more intelligent and measure, right? The old adage, if it can't be measured, it can't be managed. So the approach is to start by understanding what's happening on those calls. Look, is my marketing even driving a good call or not? Right? Or am I getting a bunch of people asking, what's your store hours? What's your address? Is my order ready yet? Now, I'm paying for this paid media. Alan, you just told me that paid media is driving 40 billion phone calls. How do I know which campaigns are working? How do I know which campaigns are not just driving more clicks, but better leads? How about the fact that I'm driving these calls to my client? My client has no idea that his brother-in-law answering the phone is a dummy. When he does answer the phone, he squanders the lead. Most of the time, he misses the call. How about the fact that on the other end of that line is a customer? How do I identify that that customer is a hot lead? How do I identify and prioritize that? Either for a follow-up or, put your marketing hat on, remarketing. Right? If you're going to invest in a mailer, you may as well start with the ones that you know have a higher propensity to buy. First-hand knowledge, not just based on the fact that they drive a BMW and live in a certain part of town. Although that doesn't hurt, I guess. And lastly, look, you know that you're not getting all lovey-dovey calls, right? In fact, we see typically 40 to 50% of the calls are not really sales opportunities. So if that's the case, not everybody's going to be happy. So who's really fired up and upset? Because what's going to happen? They're going to write an online review. And then those of you in the reputation management business are going to get to charge them money for reputation management. So how do we nip that in the bud? How do we identify those customers who are in a bad way beforehand? All of this stuff is happening with that ridiculous thing of a phone call, right? That transactional thing that is old school. Well, when we think about all those valuable things and all that wealth of data, we could have set out to design and build, God bless you, software. But I am too arrogant, call it a Napoleonic complex, if you will, to set out and do things that way. What we decided to do was do something a little bit differently. I didn't think that businesses wanted more software. I think they're tired of it. I think that businesses are looking for answers. So as analysts, let's think about that. How do we not give our clients, our internal stakeholders, tools? Tools that enable and empower them. First of all, let's kill those words forever. Let's give them insights. Let's give them information that helps them run their business without needing to go through a 12-hour training program and hire an analyst to be able to interpret that data, right? To download a CSV and then figure out, just tell me what's important about this, okay? So in order to do that, we set out to build a data product, a tangible data product, something that is able to answer these questions. Okay? So as you think about our approach, what I'd like you to do is think about maybe how you can approach this with the data that you're working with every day. Okay? So, our approach is to take all of those challenges, right? Those big, hairy challenges. Is it even a sales call? If it's a sales call, how good is it? Who are the hot leads? Who are the upset customers? By fundamentally breaking the problem down. Okay? So we go back to basics. We go back to basics and we think about analytics in just 3 steps. Can you capture the data? Do you have the right tools to analyze it? And then packaging, okay? Now I joined Dialogue Tech because the capture piece is super easy. Remember, in the old contact center days, it would take 6 weeks to 6 months to record a phone call. 2 mouse clicks. We can record and analyze a dialogue between a customer and a company completely outside the contact center. I literally looked at the CEO and said, where can I sign up, right? The access to that data is tremendous, okay? So part of the way that you can disrupt is by figuring out or getting in line with technologies that make it super easy to capture data, okay? Same thing with the analytics. You don't have to invent. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. In fact, for us, there's a big component of speech, the analytics, that is taking the audio file and transcribing it into text, right? Speech-to-text transcription. Siri does it, sometimes annoyingly badly, but whatever, okay? That has been around since the early 2000s. It started at Carnegie Mellon. There are people much, much smarter than I ever will dream to be that developed that and have continued to develop that. That is the definition of artificial intelligence, rather than, am I right or am I wrong? Did I get? It was CompuServe. It wasn't at Carnegie Mellon?
You could, in 1995, you could pick up your phone and they would read your emails to you, and you could answer that.
You have to excuse him. He does this at everything anybody
I love it.
about CompuServe did 20 years ago. It's just this thing. It's a rare form of
You develop. Well, so I will change my entire pitch to be about CompuServe. I am in Columbus. That's true. Or as my wife would say, the land of milk and honey, because her family's still in Ohio. So, forgive me. However, I will say, since '95, people much smarter than I will ever be have developed this technology. So we didn't want to reinvent it. We OEM'd it, right? We OEM'd it with somebody. So we didn't set out to try to build a better mousetrap. We said, we'll take what you've already built and design something more consumable. And I will use that term over and over again. The goal is to take something that used to be super complicated and make it consumable. How do you take the science project out of data science, right? How do you make it so that anybody and everybody, even a small business owner, can leverage the power of artificial intelligence the same way that my 11-year-old son leverages, I hate that term, Alexa. He doesn't have to know that it's artificial. He doesn't even know. He doesn't care. Alexa, whatever the song, I have no idea what songs are popular now, right? Play Taylor Swift. She just won an award, and it would just do it. It just does it. Alexa, turn on the lights. It just does it. So why is it that when we think about business-to-business software, we just confuse the crap out of things? We make it so damn hard. We give people tools. I said, no, just give somebody something. Set it up. Have it start giving them answers, okay? That's what we set out to do. And a lot of that has to do with focusing on the packaging, okay? Because once you have the capture piece figured out, and in this day and age, it's really easy. There's data everywhere. And the analytics from CompuServe are ready to fire, right? OEM it. Give the man some royalties. Now you can start to think about the packaging. So what we did is, on top of that, we just took our IP. Again, I've been listening to phone calls for 10 years. An inbound call, it doesn't matter if you're trying to buy tires or if you're trying to buy Brian Huber's Comfort Keeper services, doesn't matter. It's going to start with buying intent. I'm looking for, I'm trying to find, do you carry? And then the dance happens between the caller and the sales rep. The details here are less important for you guys. But the idea here is our intellectual property takes this nebulous blob of a phone call and it breaks it down into chunks. You break the problem down. When you do that, guess what you can do? You can take that phone call and not have somebody listen to it and say, oh, yep, this is a sales call. I'm going to bucket it here for the machine learning. This one, not a sales call. I'm going to put it over here. And do that 5,000 times. Because guess what's going to happen? There's going to be bias in the way that they hear that. Our approach in this way, by fundamentally breaking it down into dozens of little indicators, allows us to put the puzzle pieces back together. We know that it's a sales opportunity. Why? Not because we listened to it and somebody arbitrarily bucketed it that way. It's because the data told us it was a sales opportunity. Okay? There was buying intent. There was a service overview by the rep. My favorite is urgency. I need something as soon as possible. My kid just broke a window and it's about to start raining. Right? My kids cause a lot of problems if you haven't figured that out yet. That's the customer telling you that I not only want to give you money, but I can't wait to do so. When you start to take these independent things that are happening in a dialogue, all of a sudden you can start to paint the picture of a sales funnel. Am I just information gathering? Am I getting a price quote? Did I react to that price? Ooh, that's a little bit more expensive than I thought. All of a sudden, now you know they're a little bit farther down the funnel, right? Because now they're taking that price point and they're anchoring against either their budget or competitor's price. So there's a lot of really cool stuff that you can do. But from an analytics perspective, a lot of people say, start with the end in mind. Again, I'm kind of a jerk. I said, no, screw that. We're going to start by breaking it down. Let's break it down into its atomic pieces and then take a step back. God bless you. Something's going on in that world. Break it down into its atomic pieces and then take a step back and then interpret the data. Use your knowledge of the domain. In this case, it's a sales call. It's a revenue generation call. To then create algorithms that can interpret that. Okay? Now what you can do as analysts, doesn't matter if you're internal or client-facing or what have you. Now you can start to own the algorithm. Now you can start to package an insight. Because now I can take all of these inputs and what they look like on an individual call, something like this. Okay? Right? Here's the dialogue in the spoken transcript, right? And it's a blob. What you see here is all of those indicators saying, oh, I just noticed this person is sensitive about time. How long is that going to take? Oh, I just noticed this person has price sensitivity. You know, I need something a little bit more affordable, right? All of these things happen independently, and then we put them back together. And when you put the puzzle pieces back together and you own the algorithm, the customer or your stakeholder, this is just kind of a proof point, right? This is the sausage factory. But then you can use tools like this. Again, anybody know what tool this is? It's just Tableau. It's Tableau. It's a data visualization. I have a love-hate relationship with Tableau. I'm happy to say so. Okay? It's kind of like airlines. I got to use one of them. They all suck. Does anybody work for Tableau? Thank God. All right. So now I can tell a client, this is a demo, this is not their real data, don't worry about it. I wouldn't do that. Not only how many calls they got, but what's the lead quality? What's the average lead score? It's 5.4 in August, 5.3 out of 10. How is that trending? Every call is now ascribed with a quality score. That's one of our key performance indicators. Guess what we did? We said, don't worry about it. Don't worry about how it's made. We're going to take ownership of the algorithm and deliver you insights. Now every call is packaged. Now you have a lead score on every call. Now you know whether or not that call is actually a sales opportunity or somebody calling to check in, whatever it may be at Hyatt. Okay? So here, only 16% of the calls driven in September were actually sales opportunities. Did that thing convert? Did it convert into a booking or an appointment? If it's a sales opportunity, how many of those actually succeed? Here, about 35%. Is that up or down? And this is something that is usually pretty intriguing. How many of the calls go to voicemail? How many times does the person that you're sending the call to not even answer the phone? 9%. There are some locations that it's up to 33%. Yep. That's the same reaction. CompuServe. I'm never going to forget this. So, we're going to come back to this operations view, because this gets into another thing that we're doing with the packaging, that phone call. When you look at it by different attributes, all of a sudden, it has a lot of salience for different people. So one interaction. So now let's look at that interaction by marketing attributes. You're driving a lot of calls from digital. We just saw that, right? Did you know that 64% of your calls are coming from SEO visitors to your website? That lead score is 1.4. Look at the paid visitors. Not as many calls from those paid visitors, but the lead quality is higher. Congratulations, you're doing your jobs well as digital marketers. Okay? But so all we did was take that same phone data, look at it by a different attribute. Let's look at it by marketing attributes. Because now,
so unless someone volunteers that I click on a paid ad to get here, how do you tell the difference between, say, an SEO visitor and a paid ad visitor?
that's a great question. So I kind of glossed over the data capture piece. Our technology, you deploy a piece of JavaScript on the website. And it cookies, and it gives you a unique phone number, and we get the entire click path journey of that customer. We also can match the GCLID. We know the referring domain, right? That's also how we get things like, well, you can publish a number for call extensions. You can direct visitors paid, right, up there. But this is the actual paid keyword data. Why? Because we have a two-way integration with AdWords. I'm not going to get too much into it. I know it's interesting to you guys as marketers, but A, I'm not the digital guy. B, I don't want to sell you on crap. So you can look us up later. I'd be happy to give you references to people. But look at how cool it is. Now you take that same data and you look at it by keyword. Now all of a sudden, somebody who's interested in SEO or SEM is going to be, okay, which of my paid keywords is working better than the others? Where should I optimize? Now you can take that same thing by landing page. And by the way, this can easily be done in existing tools like Google Analytics. I'm just doing it in here, right? When they land, which landing pages that they end up calling have the highest, not only volume of phone calls, but the highest quality. This is all mocked up data. Don't worry, Hyatt is not going to get upset. The last touch page. So now you can start to think about the richness of the data. Why? Because that phone call, now we're looking at it from marketing attributes. Okay? The idea is now, not by asking somebody, is it Frederick? Frederick, so you're my client. What kind of challenges are you dealing with? Yeah, you don't want to answer that. And frankly, I don't really want to know. Because my hypothesis is that you are dealing with these problems over here. Again, I'm an arrogant jerk. These are the things that you guys are, this is my hypothesis, right? We're taking ownership over the algorithms and we're telling you, look, yes, there are a lot of interesting things that may be happening in your industry, but if I can tell you the quality of every lead, if I can tell you if it's a sales call, if I can tell you if it did actually convert, I'm postulating that ownership of those metrics and ownership of the packaging in a ready-to-consume way will have legs. Now, that same insight, how many of you do work with clients or work in organizations that have locations spread out geographically? Like more than 10 locations spread out geographically? Yeah, okay. So, can you see this number of properties here is 544? That's how many properties Hyatt has. Now, the idea is change the game. Now, even though none of those calls to the properties is going through a call center, it's going directly to the property. How do I know what's happening? It's going to Sheboygan, the one in Michigan, not Wisconsin. Now you can figure out which cities are getting the most leads and the best leads. Because I'm taking that same data now and I'm pivoting it by location. And now it has salience for sales operations. That same phone call. So as a digital marketer, if you're in an agency, that same phone call isn't just about the top of the funnel and feeding leads. You can now help somebody understand truly what's happening in their operations. Look, you have 491 locations that had at least 10 calls. The top 20%, man, I'm short. I'm going to use this. This is quintiling. I didn't invent it. All you're doing is taking these elements, in this case it's number of properties, stack ranking them in a KPI. Okay? Have anybody done anything like quintiling or quartiling before? Yeah, it's like a performance management thing. Okay? I think like CEB, Corporate Executive Board, does a lot of it. So here, 491 that meet this threshold of 10 calls. Quintile 1, that's the top 20% in this key performance indicator. They are closing 47% of the sales opportunities that you send them. Quintile 5 is the bottom 20%. 14%. See that gap between quintile 1 and quintile 5? The key is we're measuring it the same way. We're only measuring it on sales opportunities, right? Because Tony, the birthday boy, he could be closing 30%. I could be closing 10%. I'm going to say, that's not true. I get all the check-in calls. Tony gets all the good sales opportunities. I'm a much better salesperson than that. Nope. So when you design one of these things, make sure that you're normalizing some of that noise. And we're normalizing it, how? By only measuring a sales conversion if it is a sales opportunity, right? If we're going to measure batting average, I'm only going to measure a legitimate at-bat. None of our teams are in the playoffs anymore, so we're fine. Okay? That variability tells you that somebody's doing something dramatically different. Benchmark these guys. Work on these guys. Maybe even don't even send them leads. Send them to the call center because they're squandering the opportunities. Okay? So you can do location level reports. It's funny, Adam was talking about this. You can do time of day of week, right? It's the same phone call. You're just looking at it by operational attributes. Okay? So, what have we talked about? We've talked about taking the data, looking at it by two different lenses. A marketing lens, all of a sudden digital marketing, all sorts of insights, right? By location, operational metrics, now you have a whole new group of stakeholders to appeal to. One of the things, however, that Brian Huber and I worked on in a proof of concept was this. Underneath each one of these calls, is a customer. So think about in a hyper-local business. We actually did need a dishwasher repair. So my wife called. I don't know if she got a hold of the person. I'm pretty sure she didn't book anything, right? Who knows what's going to happen with that? The guy will be lucky if we call him back. Most of the time, he probably didn't even answer the phone because he, as the owner, is actually out there servicing. If he's not servicing, he's trying to make payroll, or he's doing support, right? Small business owners wear almost every hat, right? So how can you take artificial intelligence, analytics, whatever you want to call it, and make it so that everybody can benefit from it? Not just the comfort keepers, corporate, I'm not going to say Brian's budget, but who that have larger budgets, right? What about Joe the plumber? That's what gets me excited. So taking that same data, packaging it, Joe doesn't want to see, Joe the plumber, doesn't want to see a dashboard. Maybe he does, but I'm guessing he doesn't. What if I could package that and send him an alert every time in the morning with all of the hottest leads from the day before that didn't convert? Those customers who expressed buying intent, who maybe expressed urgency, all that good stuff had a high lead score, but we didn't see that sales conversion. Now all of a sudden, Joe doesn't have to listen to every call, doesn't have to worry about his Dumbo brother-in-law answering the phone and possibly squandering it, because now he has analytics watching his back. Same thing with the customer experience issues, okay? You have literally the voice of the customer. The customer telling you exactly what they think about that company's brand or service. Not everybody's going to be happy with you. Remember in the Hyatt example, only 16% of the calls were actually sales opportunities. That means there are over 80% of the calls, there's an opportunity that somebody's going to be mad, okay? How do you identify those people before they go on social media and destroy your online reputation? So what gets me excited about this is all of a sudden you take speech analytics, which has been around since 1995, thank you for the correction, and actually have it hit the hockey stick that everybody's been talking about. It's not by trying to build better software. It's by taking that data, packaging it in a way that is very consumable. Yes, please.
Sorry, I have a question. So, say Joe the plumber calls those three, like, how do you know that all three of those are still opportunities? Like, what if someone like had an emergency? Like, two of those, they could have called someone else.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. So, how do you sort of bridge that gap?
So Joe can actually view, take a listen to what the call was. The way that people are doing it right now is he's looking and seeing if there was a booking from this phone number, and actually there's normally reverse lookup data. If you see up there, Cherie, that's reverse lookup. So we do a data dip and get the first name, last name, city and state. So you can say, yeah, I remember booking with Cherie or not. But then the worst thing that happens is you call back and say, hey, I saw you called yesterday with a need. Did you get everything you needed? Is there anything we can help you with today? Worst case that happens is, nope, already got it done. The best thing that happens is $500. And by the way, that's a really solid number to use for a small business. Almost every one of them. How much is the average order value? That's about $500. If you say $500, they'll say, yeah, you're about right, and you'll look really, really smart. Not as smart as CompuServe, but really, really smart. Okay? So that's part of, what gets me really excited is, man, I would love for every small business. Do you know what's the number? 500,000 small businesses that open every year in the US? Something just ridiculous, right? Wouldn't it be great to make something like artificial intelligence just that consumable? How do you take something and stop thinking like a B2B software company and start thinking like a B2C, right? That's what gets me jazzed up. Because a little bit of packaging, and now you can address all three, I'm sure there are more than 3 stages, but 3 stages of the funnel. Feed the top of the funnel with smarter leads, not just clicks. Better sales management in the middle. Then down at the bottom, down to that actionability of the individual customer. And the beauty of it is it's the same phone call. It's the same phone call, but it's driving value 3 times because the analytics, what you're doing is you're packaging it. Think about the attributes that you have available to you. So that's it. I don't know why I chose the pig. I needed a slide, and so I just chose the pig. If you think about nothing else, I hope there's some element of this that you think about, like, you know, a lot of our customers, and probably the same for you and your internal stakeholders, they don't want to learn new tools. So think about how to package insights. Take ownership over the data and the algorithm. And by the way, you can monetize that. That's what we're hoping to do. And then packaging matters. Think about how to package it. That's just something that is all the time, ever present at the forefront of my mind and the mind of my team is, how do we package this to make it consumable? Do I have to explain this to somebody? Or if I just gave this to somebody, would they inherently know what to do? Questions?
And we're going to try to do questions with the mic for the sake of the recording. Now that I've tested this mic works, I don't know if this is a question or whether I'm going to just put Adam on the spot, because I didn't realize that you were a recent sign up and I only vaguely know what your latest venture is. So are you cool with giving a quick little rundown on what you're doing with Dialogue Tech?
Do you know what you're doing
Do
with
you know
us
what
yet?
you're doing? Or what you're planning to do? Maybe it's more what your business is, because I think because you're kind of geared to be an intermediary.
So, I don't know, roughly a year ago, a partner and I started a business that instead of focusing on clicks and landing pages, we just focus on calls. And we've been using competing software to some degree, call tracking metrics. We've used CallRail as well, for those of you who are familiar with the call tracking space. We run a lot of Google ads, so they have some functionality with call tracking, but not recording or anything. We are going to try this out right now for a new, we're launching a telemedicine venture. And initially, at least, while we're dipping our toes in the water, we're going to use it for like affiliate management. So, yeah. I am not entirely sure about how exactly my partner plans to do the affiliate management through it, but before we, turn everything over to it, we definitely want to dip our toes in the water and see how it works and get familiar with the software on a more limited basis, because obviously, there's going to be a lot fewer affiliates signing up to help market our things than there will be potential users of a telemedicine service.
So you guys think today in the affiliate space, right? A lot of people pay their affiliates if they drive a call that's over 2 minutes. That's because they don't know if it was a good sales call, but 2 minutes seems like it's long enough, right? So with some of the analytics, now you can actually base payment to your affiliates on something a little bit more sophisticated than 2 minutes. Lead quality, is it a sales lead? Things like that.
Okay, I'll stop hogging it.
Sorry. I was curious to know sort of if there's anything that's able to do real-time processing at this point. Something to actually give the call people handling the call for call center environments or things like that, something that's just...
Yep. So the answer is yes, there are real-time capabilities. The answer is also that we do not have, when you say real-time, like during the call. It's possible. It's just more hardware. You just throw more hardware at it. That's what it takes. Having worked in call centers on sort of the ancillary side, like in analytics, for over 10 years, one of the things that I've found is that there's a dream and a promise of real-time. The execution falls flat for a couple of reasons. One, a lot of what people want to do in real time is a screen pop, right? In the middle of a conversation, boop, oh, Frederick just mentioned a competitor. Come at him with this offer, right? If you've ever had a screen pop come up when you're in the middle of something, it's very distracting. Now also take it to the level of your underpaid contact center reps. Yeah. There needs to be a culture of real time as well. And most people don't have it. Most organizations don't have it. Prepared to handle things in real time. They just don't have it. Unless you're going to empower the rep to make decisions in real time, it's going to be very difficult. So our analytics actually happen after the call is done. It's a post-call analytic. And the results of that data are made available anywhere from 15 minutes to 2 hours after the call's over. So somebody asked the question of if they already booked the business, right? So that alert could come in post-call. It also depends on what your real-time definition is. A lot of my clients define post-call as real-time. So we could do that. One of the things I'd love your thoughts on it. One of the things we're experimenting with is, do we do after every call that's a hot lead, or do we batch it on a daily basis? My preference is daily, because the last thing I want to do is become spam. It's the last thing I want to do. However, I will say that as soon as we release the mobile app, it won't be spam anymore. Because what I want to do is I want to benefit from the fact that everybody has FOMO, and I have 2 messages here. I'm not dying to read. That's my wife. She just wants to know how this went. Right? But like I want the FOMO of a little thing that says, oh, I have 2 alerts, right? So once we develop that app, which admittedly is I'm trying to push for, then we can do real time, right? Then you can push the real time. But in an email, right now it's an email notification, I'm going to become spam. So right now we're doing daily.
So on the capture front, because you did kind of gloss over that, and then you touched on the JavaScript piece for the website and the rotating phone number. When you get to a small business, you take Joe the plumber, $500 value, works off of, traditionally has just had a number on his card that is his cell phone. Does it economically make sense? There is no call center. There's no one answering phones. Is this sort of thing getting to the point that it is still a worthwhile investment for basically 1 or 2 people who are answering a phone number? And I guess, I don't fully understand. And I see the rotating phone numbers that happen.
Yep.
What actually happens when those phone numbers are rotated? Are they just a big ass list of phone numbers you have, but you're routing them to whatever Joe's cell phone?
The easiest way to think about it is the way that the call tracking works is when you see a phone number and you call it. Let's say you see a number and it's a Dialog Tech number, right? It's not really a phone number. It's a tracking number. Dialog Tech owns that phone number. So it first hits our platform, right? That's where we append all the intelligence to it. And then there's a rule that says, forward it to this phone number, 614-555-TIMMY. So we'll do that, okay? Now, because it ran through our platform, we'll be able to record it. We'll have all that intelligence. The caller has no idea. They just know that they called and got connected to Tim, because that's what he wanted to do.
But I'm answering on my cell phone because you're actually able to write along with it and record the entire.
We can simultaneously. You guys hear those annoying grasshopper commercials on the radio? No, is that just in Chicago? It might be in Chicago. It's basically what we do, right? You can set up a number. In fact, some small businesses have actually taken like their main line and ported it over to Dialog Tech. So now it's a Dialog Tech number. And on the back end, they just replace it with a number they don't publish, okay? So now every time somebody sees 614 Joe the plumber, and they call that, they don't know it, but they're calling a Dialog Tech number. And then we're routing it. We can route it to Joe and 3 other people simultaneously ring, okay? So that we can try to ensure everybody answers the phone. Your original question, though, I don't want to get too much into how the call tracking works, but basically it's a tracking number, and we intercept it. That's it, okay? Depending on where that number is coming from, we can append a whole lot of knowledge to it, right? If we have session data from the JavaScript, sometimes people have a mailing campaign. So they'll put a tracking number on that mailing campaign. So now you can attribute the phone calls from that campaign, right? And it's relatively inexpensive. It's like, I don't know, $1 a phone number or something like that. So you asked about affordability. We're getting there. $1 a phone number and, I don't know, you have to process the call, so maybe it's like 7 cents a minute, and there's a whole bunch of other, it nets out to being like, if you pay 30 to 50 cents a call kind of thing, right? I will say, though, that as volumes increase, and frankly, as we get more efficient at what we're doing, it's probably going to go down. But right now, our primary vehicle to getting to the small business owners is through franchisors. Comfort Keepers is a great example, right? But I mean, that's the vision that I don't want to get like strategy for Dialogue Tech, but this is Alan's my personal vision is to disrupt the daylights out of things. And you do that not by selling to 5,000 large businesses, you do that by selling to millions of small business owners. That's what I find super intriguing.
There's a company called Google that had a similar strategy there, and
Yeah.
it seems to work out.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Don't tell my CEO that I'm going against his enterprise strategy, though. He won't be very happy with me. We'll redact that
Well,
part of the video.
Anybody else have questions? I'll sit and we'll hit.
So, how configurable is the data capture standpoint? For instance, to you, what may seem obvious to indicate certain things in a sales call may be different things that indicate the same things, or I may be specifically have different metrics that I'm looking for that indicate success or failure of particular parts of a sales call.
Yep. So this solution in particular was designed to be as plug and play as possible. The way that we do it today, it still takes about 2 weeks of just tuning, just to make sure we have, every industry, every client may have different ways of saying things, right? I'll give you the example that we have a client that used us. They're in the home windows and doors industry, right? After listening to a dozen or so of their calls, all of a sudden you start to pick up on the pattern. If they make a conversion in a sale, they are trained to say, and I know you'll be happy with what we have to show you. Okay. Super easy to capture that, so we're going to tune that, right? But that's what we do. In 2 weeks, we dive in and we tune it. It's about 80% baked, and then those 2 weeks, we take it the other 80%. The idea is then to come back with accurate representations of 4 key performance indicators. A lead score, is it a sales call? Did that sales call convert? And is there a customer experience issue? Now, if a customer says, it's really important for me to know if somebody's asking for new tires, that's a customization that can be done. But now, all of a sudden, you get a little bit outside of that, right? So from a data product perspective, and this is something that, frankly, our sales team is struggling with, right? Because they look at me and they'll, well, you can do it, right? Well, yeah, I can do anything, right? I can pave my own driveway, too. I don't want to, right? But that's just, from a corporate standpoint, you just have to be strong and say, no, those are services. So what we're trying to do here is build a data product. That data product are those 4 KPIs. If you want some customizations, that comes with some services, and we can build that for you. Does that make sense?
I used to be a Sandler sales trainer. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
Oh, yeah.
That's a whole, I could see using this in all kinds of interesting ways.
We could use your help. Well, actually, there are a lot of businesses that have popped up. 2 of them from Israel. Israel, by the way, there's a lot of innovation happening there. I don't know you guys. My last company was based out of Israel as well. We have 1,500 engineers there. Gong and Chorus. They are more focused, however, on B2B sales, outbound calls. It's highly consultative, though, right? Highly consultative. And it's all about performance management. Having been in the contact center world, I want to stay away from performance management because human behavior change is hard.
But you're saying B2B outbound calls. You're actually minding the calls saying the inside salesperson called out, we're now mining that and saying, wow, this
Yeah.
person is consistently shorter calls and they're consistently using the term asshole or something.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
That's an extreme. I don't know.
That's exactly it. Now, we do drink our own champagne. We do have our own analytics working. That call example that I showed you, that was one of our calls. It happened to be an inbound call, right? But the B2B world is a much smaller addressable market for us. So again, I'm going to the Google world domination thing of small businesses everywhere. So there is a play for the Sandler Sales Institute type of sales coaching and training. It's a lot harder to build a data product with that. It's a lot more consulting.
It is, but it's not. I mean, if
Interesting.
you're following it, let's pretend it's people using the Sandler system. Okay. If they're supposed to be using the Sandler system, certain things in the system are tunable to determine and to measure the metrics of the performance of the sales team based upon whether or not they're hitting certain things, for instance.
I see exactly where you're going with that, and that's really intriguing because then you're tying it to a methodology.
Yeah, and then did they hit these things and did it close, or did they miss things and not? And that's the easy
Right.
one, and you can get a lot more complex from there, but even that base level is
Interesting.
useful. And
Yeah.
in some of my clients, I had a client that here spent many millions of dollars on series of TV ads that that ended up in only being a close ratio of about 70% of someone making an inbound call in response to a TV ad. And the only reason they would have picked up the phone and dialed the phone is they had a problem that the TV ad advertised that they would have fixed. Now, we did a bunch of work with their customer service people who were taking the incoming calls and improved that score by about 8%, and that was, a huge win for that company.
Sure.
But this kind of metrics that you're doing, if it's customizable to the point that that we could run performance metrics on individuals in the call center and do certain things, and we could tune up the best people, lop off the worst, and we could do it in a smart fashion instead of just simply lopping off the worst, which was kind of, to a certain extent, what happened.
Right. Right. I think part of what you can gain, and this is just speech analytics in general, is an understanding of the why behind the results.
Well, they were getting thousands, literally, of calls in, so it was impossible to listen to all the calls.
For sure. And that's where you need something at scale.
So we're going to do one more question, and then you'll stick around for a little while because you don't have to fly out till 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, right?
That's right.
Okay, so.
Thank you. Thanks for the talk. That was awesome. Kind
you.
of a machine learning question. So it seems like a classification problem generally. You're trying to classify a call as a hot lead or not, simplistically.
A little bit, yes. Yes.
So can you talk a little bit about the data labeling process? Did you guys use historical data to label a call as, a successful call, or did you have to manually, listen to these calls and?
Yep. So with this product in particular, we went about with a different approach. We do have a data science team that does exactly that. They label the data. They have teams that listen to thousands of calls because somebody wants to know if they mention tires or if it's whatever it may be, right? What we designed with what I just showed you today explicitly goes against that. Because what we found was that it takes a lot of work, and I'm not talking about dialogue tech doing the work. I'm talking about the client doing the work, right? So still being able to deliver in the high 80s, low 90s in accuracy, but to be able to do so in 2 weeks, that's what we're trying to achieve. Now, our data scientists are doing some pretty amazing things with data labeling, with some other things that can be more extensible across clients and across domains. building upon a sentiment model, as an example, a customer engagement model, right? So in that case, they're labeling calls, they have criteria. But as with anything, with manual labeling, you have to be very explicit in terms of what that means, okay? High engagement, you have to be very explicit in the criteria because the person doing the auditing has to score that call the same way as this person, right? So the approach that we took was to start with dozens of really small indicators. When you start at that level, and you can tune them at that level, right? But it's almost, I don't know, micro-labeling? I don't know what to call it. I don't want to invent stuff, but that's what it is. When you do it at that piece, you're not dependent on any one thing. You now can look at a combination of things. And for lack of a better term, there's strength in the number of those indicators.
Awesome. This was super interesting. I feel like we could go for like 3 hours because I've got like a million more questions, and text analytics is fascinating. Ngrams? I don't know. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Round of applause.